Hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of my newsletter series. Today I got another one from Joey Sturgis because, well, it's another interesting one, and it's called, When Should You Mix Before Editing Your Tracks?
The standard workflow for most sessions is straightforward. First, you need to record something. Second, you edit those tracks, clean up the problems, tune the out-of-tune parts, and pocket each of your instruments. Third is the mix before you finally wrap up with mastering.
I like how Joey acts like retaking is not an option because it's as if he thinks humans can't make great records, where in reality the greatest albums of all time left the human performances untouched.
While several of these steps might be broken out into parts, such as separate tracking and overdub sessions, for the most part this is the workflow we've all come to know. There are parts that you simply cannot rearrange. Without something tracked, there's nothing to mix, and without something mixed, there's nothing to master.
I agree, because that's how I started out. I would record, then edit, and then mix the song. These days, not so much. I don't really do edits unless fade-ins, fade-outs, or manual gating. But no, I don't fuck with my performances or anyone else's. And yeah, you gotta track before you can mix and master. Or program if you do EDM.
If you're opening up a session for the very first time, creating a static mix might be the most helpful approach rather than jumping right into edits. By creating a static mix first, you're accomplishing two main things. The first is that you're creating instant familiarity with the session. Rather than having to go track by track listening for edits that need to be made, you're hearing them in real time as you're building your static mix. You might take notes as you build your static mix, but you're working at a much faster rate in this matter. This could be essential if you've never heard the song before. The other major benefit is that you're giving yourself context from the start. Editing in isolation can be tricky. Things don't play off each other the same way if you've edited them one at a time and your first real playthrough of the song comes after all of the edits have been made.
You know what? That's totally true. It's better to edit based on how all the tracks work together rather than editing everything individually and then listening to the full mix afterwards. Something might not sound great by itself, but might sound great in the full mix, which is what you're putting together in the first place. I've worked on productions where something sounded like shit by itself but sounded great in the mix, or something sounded amazing by itself and ruined the entire mix.
A static mix should be a quick and easy thing to create for engineers. You're not trying to make it sound perfect, just good enough to work with by setting levels generally where you'd like them to be. Quick settings for static mixes include setting levels, panning, and basic dynamic processing like EQ and compression. How you set these now just need to get you in the ballpark. You'll be changing them and creating a more dialed-in sound after editing. I also like to include a lot of my routing and grouping options right from the static mix as well. By having my buses set up for guitars, drums, etc., I can add the basic glue-nated pre-edit so that I can really hear what my groups will sound like later in the mix. Bus compression for each group is common, and having a dedicated reverb/delay to send tracks to can be helpful even if I plan on replacing them later. Most static mixes should only take 15 to 20 minutes to set up, but they'll save you hours of editing. You're not going to worry about any kind of automation at this point. Save that for the actual mix. Just set up something quick as if you were mixing the song on the fly. Just that bit of context you're giving yourself will go a long way.
Again, I agree. It's better to get familiar with how the tracks play off each other before you do the editing session. That way you don't risk, let's say, having to re-edit a track because the initial edit made it sound less fitting in the full mix.
Notice that as we've been talking through this, I've only discussed the mix before and after the editing stage. This is a key part of taking this approach. It's a waste of time to try and do both at the same time. Many mixers think they can cut corners by killing two birds with one stone. They think, if I can mix and edit at the same time, wouldn't that cut my work in half? In reality, it cuts the quality of their final result in half and ends up taking them twice as long. The reason for this is simple. Switching between technical and creative approaches kills your ability to do both well. When you're editing, your mind is in analysis mode. You're seeking out problems and finding solutions. When mixing, it's switching to creativity. You might be seeking out problems and solutions, but for the most part, you're focused on the art of the mix. You're painting with broad and narrow strokes to create great-sounding individual instruments that combine into a full, complete mix. Do yourself a favor and keep the two separate. Doing so will give you better edits and better mixes.
You know, I think the reason why I find Joey's newsletters interesting is that, well, he gives great advice, but I don't always agree with him, like the time and pitch correcting, and sample replacing and all that. Anyways, that's all I got for today, so thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned for more content.